Hi there. I'm Jim Zirin. Welcome back for more conversations. With us is Martin London, a lion of the New York trial bar, and they don't come any better. Marty has been a keen observer of the various legal entanglements facing our former President Donald Trump, and he has strong views on the way forward for Merrick Garland. Marty is the proprietor of Marty's blog, where he shares brilliant insights into the legal issues of the day. He also has had professional experience with Trump, which he recounts in a riveting book entitled The Client Decides a Litigator's Life, Jackie Onassis, Vice President Spiro Agnew, Donald Trump, Roy Cohn, and more. We're delighted to have Marty back with us on the program.
Delighted to be here, Jim.
Now, Marty, is Trump going to be indicted?
Boy, is he going to be indicted? And if so, where? And if so, how many times? Is it going to be in Georgia? Is it going to be in Florida? Is it going to be in Washington, D.C.? How many counts? Who knows? My guess is somewhere, somehow, somebody is going to tag him.
So what's your best guess? Where is he going to be indicted? When? And for what?
If you were in the Department of Justice, you would do everything you could to indict him in the District of Columbia.
Now, why is that?
Huh?
Why is that?
Because you got a better jury pool. Florida is probably the worst jury pool.
A lot of MAGAs on the jury.
In the country. There's a lot of MAGAs on the jury, and there's a history of arch conservatism in the Florida judiciary. You and I were just pointed out that on the 11th Circuit, there are 6 out of the 11 judges, not who are just conservative or members of the Federalism Society, they're appointed by Trump. Scandal of all scandals. One of those 6 Trump judges on the 11th Circuit is the spouse of one of the nominees for special master put forward by the Trump lawyers. I mean, there's a word we all learned in law school, it's called chutzpah. And that's a special chutzpah to put on there as a nomination for special master somebody whose wife is sitting on the 11th Circuit, who's going to pass on what the judge canon says.
She could disqualify herself, or is she going to be like Clarence Thomas?
I don't know, yeah. Clarence hasn't disqualified himself from anything. And my guess is he's not going to.
Despite what his wife does.
Neither is Ginny going to disqualify herself.
Well, she's not in office. She's just running around trying to overthrow the government.
She's the 10th justice.
Well, quite possibly.
Right.
So, by the way, do you think the Supreme Court has become politicized?
No, come on. Those are nice, honest, plain, straight shooting guys. There's only one solution there. The court is, in my judgment, a disgrace. They've disgraced themselves. And somehow or other, the Democrats have to get control of both houses while they have the executive, and add 4 people to the Supreme Court. And they've got only 2 years to do it, and they got to win in November to get it done. So nothing else will do it.
Well, Roosevelt had control of both houses. He tried to pack the court, and the bill was dead on arrival in the Senate.
Well, you know, I don't want to go into a long story, but I spoke to somebody who was involved in that process. And it's not that the Senate wouldn't do it, it's that Roosevelt wouldn't agree to modify the proposal. The issue was whether the court would be slimmed down eventually. The people who wanted the proposal said, okay, you can do it, which will produce 15, because his proposal was everybody over 70, there would be an additional justice because the people over 70 were working too hard. Well, that was a lie. Everybody knew it was a lie. He was urged not to tell that lie. He told it anyway. And then they said, and then let it ultimately go back down to 9. He said, no, he wanted to keep. So there's a lot behind that story. And I can only recommend to you that you do some research in something called Marty's blog, in which I report on how I spoke to the guys who were involved in that, the young men involved in that effort to pack the court. Look, this court had in the originally 6, then it was 8, then it was 9, then it was 10. When Andrew Johnson became president after the Civil War, they were so afraid he was going to appoint people to the Supreme Court, they knocked it down to 6 again. And then it gradually went up to 9. So there's nothing sacrosanct about the number 9. It's a political court. It's appointed by politicians. And these guys have just taken it way, way, way too far. And the only way to handle it is to add 4 more.
Well, you could handle it another way. You could have term limits for Supreme Court justices within the Constitution.
And you could also, I read somewhere, maybe even limit what subjects they could take appeals from. There are lots of things you could do, but the simple and correct solution is add 4 more. If there's anybody who changed and politicized the court, it was the Republicans with the Amy Coney Barrett and Merrick Garland decisions. When it came to Merrick Garland, they would not appoint a judge in the last year. When it came to Amy Coney Barrett, they appointed a judge 6 weeks before the end of his term. There was nothing honest about it. It was political manipulation, and very successful.
So what's sauce for the goose wasn't sauce for the gander?
Of course not. Of course not. They had power and they used it.
Okay, so now we have a politicized court. You see Justice Alito addressing partisan Republican groups.
Right.
You have Justice Thomas posing with Herschel Walker, a candidate for the Senate in Georgia. It couldn't be more political.
It could not be more political. And if you read Alito's Dobbs decision.
Which one, the leaked decision or the final decision?
If you weren't already gray, you would turn gray. Only not your hair would turn gray, your face would turn gray. It was a disgrace. It was totally dishonest. He decided where he wanted to go based on what he thought ought to be abortion law, and then he made up a whole bunch of stuff to make it come out that way. It was really a disgraceful decision, and it shows that you've got to change that court.
Okay, so back to Trump.
Yeah.
Why do you suppose he removed all those classified documents to his lair of Mar-a-Lago?
You know, I don't think anybody will ever know. I think the guy is a megalomaniac. I think it was John Bolton who was asked that question on television, and he said, there's no answer to anything he does. He's not a rational decision maker. Yeah, I'll take this, I won't take that. You can't tell.
Well, everyone says he doesn't read anything. I mean, you don't think he was planning to read those documents?
I think part of it they were toys. He could, probably a year from now, show them off at Mar-a-Lago. Look at this, this highly classified stuff. Only I don't know, I have any idea. I really don't know. The only thing I do know is what he did was against the law, against lots of laws, against the classification laws, against the possession laws, against, all those documents are the property of the government, not his. He's breaking the law merely by possessing them, whether they're classified or not. He's not allowed to have them.
So what is the issue of privilege we hear so much about? Attorney-client privilege, executive privilege. If the crime is the possession of the documents, it doesn't matter what's in them.
That's absolutely correct. And how could he have executive privilege to a document? It's not his document. The document belongs to the government. And the government right now is headed by a fellow by the name of Biden, who said there is no privilege to those documents. So there is no answer to that question because there's no logic to that question. He's not allowed to have the documents. And he and his team have lied consistently about his possession of the documents. I thought it was very interesting. I don't know if you noticed it, Jim. One of the lawyers who represents Trump in the effort before this Florida Judge Cannon to appoint a special master. One of the lawyers is a fellow by the name of Evan Corcoran. Evan Corcoran is the guy who is quoted as having told the government, because he helped look for documents in response to the subpoena, and he told the government, as reported in the press, are no classified documents in the boxes. If there were any classified documents, they would be in those boxes, and there are no documents in the boxes. Everything he said was false. There were, in fact, classified documents upstairs in Trump's desk, and then when the FBI went and looked in the boxes, they found more classified documents. So this guy, who I think has probably violated several federal laws by misleading the FBI.
And the court.
1001, 18 U.S.C. 1001. This guy who needs a lawyer, he's representing Trump in the effort to appoint an 11th Circuit spouse as special master. Can you imagine what we've come to?
Well,
Pathetic.
The Justice Department suggested a number of candidates for special master,
Right.
and then Trump suggested former Judge Raymond Dearie and the husband of the judge on the 11th Circuit whom he appointed.
Right.
And presumably, Judge Cannon will either ignore all the recommendations or maybe choose one of the better candidates than the one who has a conflict
Well,
of
I
interest.
remember the Feds nominated Barbara Jones, whom I know of. I don't know her, a highly qualified person, and I forget who the other one was. Another qualified person. I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen, because why would a special master have anything to say about the issue of executive privilege? The Supreme Court in the Nixon case said there is no executive privilege even if you're the current president. They made Nixon give up the tapes. They said no executive privilege in a criminal case, period. This guy is not the current president, and they're not his documents. I don't get it.
Well, there are 100 documents, the judge said, that are arguably classified. There is no executive privilege over classified documents. And what does a special master add to the mix? The judge can read 100 documents in 3 hours.
It's called delay. Delay, delay, delay. If you read the small print of their proposals, the government said, whoever you appoint, it's got to be finished by October 17. The Trump team said, no, we don't have to have any finished date. We'll let the special master decide. And besides, we want the right to speak ex parte to the judge. That is, they can speak to the judge without the government being involved in the conversation. A set of absurd suggestions.
Well, they want to
Who knows?
remind the judge of who appointed her, so that
I don't think she's likely to forget that.
you know, I don't either. The special master reads 100 documents, and the special master would have to get a security clearance.
Yes, yes.
In order to look at these documents.
Correct.
Probably wouldn't understand them anyway. I
Right.
mean, if they're atomic secrets of another country, as has been reported, or our own atomic secrets. And then what conclusion is there? These are covered by attorney-client privilege. They're obviously not. Executive privilege, they can't be. So what is the appointment of a special master? It's ridiculous.
It is nothing but, unfortunately, another judicial failure. It is proof that you can abuse the judiciary. It's just an effort to delay the inevitable, which is to reach the end of this inquiry, at which time Merrick Garland is going to have to make a hard decision. Do we indict this crook, or will that cause too much civil unrest?
Now, Trump called our own United States Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation vicious monsters.
Yeah.
And the judge, in her opinion, implicit in the opinion is that neither the Justice Department nor the FBI has the integrity to create a Chinese wall, have a privileged team, look at everything that might be privileged,
Right.
and then make the cut. Is the judge just adopting a MAGA trope here?
Yes. Yes. The judge is a MAGA person. Her strongest supporter in the effort to push her into the Supreme Court slot, Gates, you remember Gates, that guy down there who's hanging on the edge of, in Florida, the edge of indictment himself? He was her strongest supporter.
Yeah, Matt Gaetz.
Right.
Well, we've never in our history indicted a former president. I mean, the closest thing you could imagine is a case you were involved in, which was Vice President Agnew.
Right.
Which isn't really on all fours with this situation.
No, it's a lot different.
But the polls said that when they executed the search warrant at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's popularity improved. Now, if you indict him, is it going to improve some more?
You know, I don't know. I think the longer this thing goes on, the dirt that sticks to Donald Trump has got to prove persuasive to some people. I think he's always going to have a solid core of people who think he walks on water. And I think that's something we're just going to have to live with. I think justice requires we really live by the rule of law. And the rule of law is no man is above the law. And I think if you apply those two principles, you have to indict Donald Trump, period.
Now, in your judgment, is the Mar-a-Lago documents case stronger than the January 6th incitement to insurrection and seditious conspiracy?
Yeah, actually, I think it is, because the documents case, while not nearly as sexy as the January 6th case, and not nearly as important to the future of our democracy, is open and shut. I mean, there is no question he had those documents. There is no question they were classified. There is no question whether they were classified or not. It was a crime for him to have them. So we don't have what we lawyers in civil cases call summary judgment, where you get a verdict without bothering to have a trial. We don't have summary judgment in our criminal law, but this is as close to a summary judgment case as you can get. Though I think that the January 6th case is more important, because that case involved succession of power and involved principles that are basic to our constitutional democracy.
But that case is probably going to turn on what the president was thinking at various points in time that day and before. And
I disagree with that. I read that all the time. I disagree with that. I found a recent Supreme Court case when they talked about criminal intent. Criminal intent doesn't mean that you know it's a crime. Criminal intent is established when you know the facts, which it turns out to be demonstrate a crime has occurred. There isn't any question that Donald Trump knew the facts. He knew the Eastman proposal. He knew the effort to try and corrupt the Georgia Secretary of State. The telephone call is recorded and in the record.
Well, that's the Georgia case.
That's the Georgia case. He knew of the Eastman proposal, which Eastman himself acknowledged was a crime. He was on the phone when the Eastman proposal was transmitted. I forget the.
Now, the Eastman proposal was the phony electors.
Yes, the phony electors.
And then also what was the idea of having the Vice President, Mike Pence, throw out the count.
Exactly right.
Or delay it.
And then when you add to that, to put the sauce in is the whole insurrection, the effort, the big lie, the refusal to stop the invasion of the Capitol. Indeed, the publication of an incendiary tweet saying Pence doesn't have the guts to do the right thing, which drove the Capitol invaders to be more vigorous in their pursuit of the legislators who had to decide this matter, and erect that gibbet for Vice President
His
Pence.
own Vice President.
Yeah.
Plus the fact there was the evidence, if it's evidence that's admissible in court, of Cassidy Ferguson before the committee that he ordered the magnetometers to be removed, so he knew that the mob was armed, that he ordered to storm the Capitol.
He definitely knew the mob was I don't think there's any dispute about that. And it seems to me that there's no defense to that. They can carry on all they want, but in terms of the facts, guilty. And I think if the delay of several months won't really harm Merrick Garland's position, because with each day, more damning evidence is produced. One way or another, these guys are just digging the hole a little deeper.
Now, Merrick Garland, whose intellectual credentials I highly respect,
Yeah.
certainly has the affect of a timid soul.
He does, indeed.
He's really not the prototypical prosecutor, willing to roll the dice, willing to take a chance before the jury. I mean, to my knowledge, he hasn't tried a major criminal case before a jury, but he certainly has read the records of many criminal cases. But he seems unprepared to roll the dice, and he's worried, I think, by the Banana Republic argument that we look like a banana republic if we indict our former leaders. Larry Tribe responds, Larry Tribe was his teacher at Harvard Law School, and he responds, would look like a banana republic if there's a crime and we don't prosecute it.
Right.
So how do you come out on all that?
I started out believing that Merrick Garland was a little too gentle for my taste. I no longer think that. I think he is careful. I think he wants a complete case. I think he wants an overwhelming case. I think I would like him to pay more attention to the clock because he's may be finished in 2 years. And if he's going to drag this thing out too long, and there's a Republican president in 24, on January 21st, 2025, this is all going to go away. The Department of Justice will drop the case. So I think he's a good guy. I think he's got his eye on the ball, but he ought to, with the other eye, ought to look at the clock and get this thing going.
Well, January 1, 2023, if there's a Republican House of Representatives, they'll file a bill of impeachment against Merrick Garland, against Joe Biden. It'll be a three-ring circus.
There'll be a three-ring circus, but the prosecution will continue because though may be a new House and maybe even a new Senate in January 2023, there'll still be the Biden Department of Justice until January 25. So there's plenty of time to get this thing done. Get to it.
Yes, and of course we don't know how far along he is because grand jury proceedings are secret.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've come to the end of our time, quite sadly, but I have a question for you, Marty.
I want another half hour. I demand another half hour.
I think you'll get it, but I have a question for you, Marty London.
Yes, sir.
And the question is, will Trump be indicted? Will he be indicted anytime soon? And what do you think the first case will be?
I can't answer that with a definitive certainty. I can say it is my expectation that he will be indicted. It is my expectation that Merrick Garland is smart enough to do everything in his power to indict him in the District of Columbia, not in Florida. Whether or not the orange man is going to end up wearing orange, I don't know. He's been very successful avoiding that up to now, but I think he must be indicted. I think our democracy requires it.
Our democracy requires it. Marty London, this has been marvelous. Thank you so much
A lot
for
of
coming
fun,
by.
Jim.
Come again. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for coming by. Tune in next week for more conversations. Please visit our website at conversationswithjimzirin.com. Meanwhile, take care, be well, and all the best. I'm Jim Zirin.